right? Everyone has different goals. Some people want to publish, like I said, with the big publishers. And so the first thing to do is to figure out like what exactly you want to accomplish. Do you want it to have a really, really huge reach, or do you want to publish this as like a special thing for your community or maybe for your family?
Welcome back to those of you who have been tuning in, and welcome to any newbies. I'm so happy and honored to have you here. I do have an ask for you. Please make sure that you are subscribed wherever you're tuning in to either listen or watch this podcast. And if you have some extra time, make sure that you also leave an honest review for me. Your support and honest feedback really will help the podcast continue to grow. Also, be sure to follow us on Instagram at Dishin Up Diaspora podcast and me at Chef Emme _. All right, I'm so excited about today's guest. I'm excited about all the guests, but today I'm extra excited because today I am welcoming my very own literary agent, Stephanie Molina, to the show. Stephanie is a vibrant force in the publishing industry who's made it her mission to champion underrepresented voices. She brings a unique perspective to the literary world as an Asian Latina of Japanese, Mexican, and Irish descent. And since starting her publishing career in 2015, Stephanie joined Ladderbird Literary Agency in 2021, where she now represents an incredible range of work by BIPOC creators. She's not just an agent, she's an advocate and someone who knows how to champion a story from the heart. Stephanie, welcome.
Oh my gosh, thank you. And it's awesome to be here.
Yay, I'm so happy to have you here. Okay, I usually start with a little icebreaker. I'm going to say like two things and then you tell me which one speaks to you the most. All right,
Okay.
Sweet or savory?
Sweet.
Mystery or thriller?
Mystery.
Baking or cooking?
Baking.
Pie or cake?
Oh my gosh. Pie.
Morning person or night owl?
Night owl, definitely.
Fiction or memoir?
Ooh, fiction.
Street food or fine dining?
Street food.
Yay! You survived the quick dish.
Yay! Some of those are hard.
I know, it's like both. There's no right or wrong, or neither sometimes too. Okay, I want to start from the beginning. Although you are my literary agent, I want to learn a little bit more about you and like how you grew up, your background as an Asian Latina. So where were you born and where did you grow up?
Yeah, so I was born actually in Indiana, and we moved to California when I was 3. So I spent the first 3 years of my life around the Mexican side of my family. I apparently was fluent in Spanish at that point, as fluent as a 3-year-old can be. And then we moved to California, which would be closer to my part Japanese side of my family when I was 3. And I lived most of my life in a little town called Livermore, California.
Okay, awesome. So then I'm assuming you lost your Spanish a little bit.
I did. I lost my like 3-year-old fluency.
Yeah.
And then I kind of went back and revisited it in college when I took just like
Okay.
Spanish language courses. And
Yeah.
I felt like it came really easily to me. So I want to believe there was like a little bit of that foundation still
Yeah.
left in
I love
there.
that. When you were younger, both like when you were with your Mexican side of the family and then Japanese, like did food from those culture like show up in your household? Were your family like cooking that for you guys?
Yeah, I mean, so one of my strongest memories in Indiana, and obviously we went back like multiple times to visit.
Mm.
One of my strongest memories is just being in my grandparents' house, and my grandma, like literally always in my memory, was like making tortillas, making rice, making beans. We would always go to her house first thing when we would fly
Nice.
into Indiana for a visit. We would eat like, oh, there's so much good food. And I remember like her mole, she would always make mole for
Mm.
us. It was my mom's favorite,
Yeah.
and it also was one of my favorites too. So, yeah. And then the Japanese side of my family is like kind of has a little bit more backstory around like our food heritage.
Uh-huh.
So I'm not sure if now is the time to share that
Yeah,
or
go ahead.
maybe
You
later.
can. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh yeah, so my grandmother, was she lived in Tokyo. She was a child in Tokyo during World War II. And she came over when she met my grandfather, who was stationed there in the Navy, and they got married and came to California. And so we don't know too much about like my grandma's own experiences in Japan,
Mm-hmm.
since I think she left probably when she was like in her late teens, early
Mm-hmm.
20s.
Mm-hmm.
And so like around that time in the United States, there was obviously like efforts to like assimilate and stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
this is a lot of my theorizing because
Yeah.
we don't know a lot about her internal world at
Mm-hmm.
that time.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so I know my mom and her sisters and her brother, like my grandma did make Japanese food, but she didn't pass a lot of recipes down.
Mm.
And then unfortunately, when I was around 7, she actually had a stroke. And so I never got the chance to speak with her
Mm-hmm.
about, you know, her
Yeah.
experiences in Japan
Mm-hmm.
or like our cultural heritage or our food
Mm-hmm.
heritage or anything like that. And so, um, a big part of my like journey on that side of my family has been um like through cookbooks
Yeah.
and blogs and stuff and just trying to
Mm-hmm.
reconnect with my heritage in those ways, even though I will unfortunately never have the opportunity to
Mm-hmm.
have any like Japanese family recipes or anything
Yeah.
like that passed down.
Wow. What about her family from Japan? Have you been able to like track anybody down at all?
Yeah, so I actually did go back to Japan, I think like 2 or 3 years ago now. And I went with my now husband. We did manage to find, or like, we already knew they were there, but we
Uh-huh.
had lost touch with them.
Mm-hmm.
It's my mom's cousins.
Okay.
And so my grandma did have two sisters
Mm-hmm.
that stayed in Japan, and so we met with the cousins, and that was really, really wonderful.
Yeah.
But they don't really have any family recipes
Yeah.
either. Uh, so yeah, we met
Interesting.
them, and we're kind of connected in that way, but
Yeah. Yeah.
no food ways,
Totally.
unfortunately. So
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's why it's like for me it was so important to write a cookbook, write my recipes down because most of my memories growing up in Brazil were with food, but it was like my mom cooking, my grandma's cooking, or aunts, and I would help, but like nobody was writing recipes down. And I also just had this like fear where it's like I know how to like make my mom's recipes and kind of like adjust things and like recreate recipes, but just thinking further ahead for like other generations, my kids, their kids, like I want it written down so that it's like not lost. That's just, yeah, that would break my heart for sure.
yeah, oh my gosh, I know your kids are gonna be so grateful for
Yeah,
that.
exactly. Okay, so tell me so you went to college. Did you know you wanted to be a literary agent? What did you,
Not at all.
okay.
No, I went to college. I double majored in English and communications, English with an emphasis in creative writing, and
Mm-hmm.
I just had a vague sense that I wanted to do something like in a creative field, something to do with books. And then communications was kind of my backup, like
Mm-hmm.
because I knew, you know, there's a whole like, oh, like you can't get a job with an English major. What are you gonna do type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I happened to get an internship the summer after I graduated with a literary journal. And that was kind of my first foray into fiction editing. And then around that fall, I became a technical editor as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I was kind of like in this in-between zone for a
Mm.
couple of years post-graduation. Eventually, the technical editing job just became a little bit too soul-sucking.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I had to figure out how to make this kind of creative side of things
Yeah.
work for me. So, yeah.
Nice. And then, so your path called you and onto being a literary agent. So tell me, I feel like a lot of people don't really know what that's all about, what it entails. So can you explain to us a little bit more about your work?
Yeah, so I am both an agent on the fiction side and the nonfiction side. So I have like they work a little bit differently, but
Mm,
kind of the crux of both of them is I um, find and or am queried by authors who want to publish traditionally, usually with a larger house, and I review all these queries. And sometimes I scout and find people who are most likely to be successful or most likely to sell. And I sign them as my clients, and we work on their books together until they are ready to be pitched to editors at these big houses. Um, yeah, that's kind
Yeah.
of the basic rundown of what I do. And I guess the thing, like, people usually are curious, like, why do I need a literary agent?
Mhm.
What, is it worth it type of
Mhm.
thing?
Mhm.
And it does end up being worth it in the end if you want to publish traditionally at a big house, because you can't really get to a big house except if you go through an agent.
Mhm.
So we're kind of the gatekeepers
Mhm.
between authors and those editors at like Hachette, at HarperCollins,
Mhm.
at Simon and Schuster, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. How does one become a literary agent?
Um, a lot of unpaid work
That
right
sounds like the
now,
restaurant
unfortunately.
industry.
Most people start out with like an internship, either at an agency or sometimes an internship at a publishing house. And those internships are usually, especially at literary agencies, are usually unpaid
Mm.
or very, very low pay,
Mhm.
unfortunately. And so that's kind of an industry-wide problem where it kind of it blocks a lot of people from getting in. Like if you
Mhm.
don't have kind of the financial backing from your family, or if you don't have a lot of financial privilege,
Mhm.
or say like some people do like a mid-career pivot where they had a really lucrative career and the savings to be able to support this change into literary agenting.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I'm
Okay.
getting off topic a little,
No,
but yeah,
yeah.
most people start with internships.
Okay.
And that can be anywhere from like a year-long internship to like multiple years of just being an intern or being an assistant before someone offers you a job as an
Mm.
agent. So
Wow, yeah.
it's a tough one.
Yeah, it sounds like it for sure. You in your work, you've been really intentional and like outspoken about like working with BIPOC creators. Why is that mission like so central to your work?
I think just because, I mean, growing up, I mainly read about white people. That was what was available in bookstores at the time, especially in genres like fantasy, and mystery and things like that,
Mhm.
and then middle grade YA. And I think the first time I started like reading about people who looked like me in mainstream fiction wasn't until like college when we would have assigned reading, right,
Mhm.
for certain classes that just assigned us like more
Mhm.
diverse books, and it
Mhm.
was it was kind of an eye-opening experience, and kind of took me back to like the few books I did read when I was younger, about people of color and how impactful those were for me and how much I remembered them, even though maybe they weren't like the best, like the most technically sound, the most
Yeah.
intriguing books, like some of them were, but not all of them were, but I still remembered them
Mhm.
because of how much they reflected my experiences and my voice. And going into the literary journal post college, they were also kind of on that mission a little bit of publishing voices that haven't typically been represented or
Mhm.
elevated. And so I just kind of went from there, finding that the stories I loved were mostly BIPOC stories, and that they were super underrepresented and under advocated for,
Mhm.
and that seemed like a natural space for me to move into.
Yeah. I feel like there's a myth like across industries, like film, like anything that it's like, middle America and people just want to see this like cookie cutter like story being told and like sold to people. I honestly think it's a myth. What do you think about that?
Oh yeah, I think that's a myth. I totally agree. I feel like one of the things about book publishing, and this goes for like fiction and nonfiction, is they tend to base like their ideas of what's going to sell on what has sold before.
Mm,
And they also tend to base their marketing plans on like what they've used for white books,
yeah.
essentially.
Mhm.
Um, and so those two things combined make it so publishing sometimes thinks like BIPOC writers don't sell
Mm-hmm.
because when they're not setting them up for success with a cookie
Mm-hmm.
cutter marketing plan that is really made for like white folks and that doesn't like prioritize or identify the audiences that BIPOC people have, the additional
Mm-hmm.
audiences.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then also like it causes them not to take chances on
Mm-hmm.
BIPOC authors. So
Yeah.
so it's a little bit of a trap in that way. And it
Mm-hmm.
requires a lot of like threading the needle as an agent of like trying to make sure that books are getting the right support, that they're getting placed with the right editors, and then
Mm-hmm.
navigating like marketing and sales teams to ensure that we're not just getting like you said, to use the word cookie cutter, like we're
Yeah.
not getting a cookie cutter marketing plan
Mm-hmm.
um, because publishers don't always know
Yeah.
how to best position
Yeah.
BIPOC books.
Do you think it's changing? Because I do see a lot of, especially, I mean, mostly like in cookbooks that I'm focusing on, just like, I feel like there has been so many like black authors, like global cuisine, kind of like booming a little bit, much more than previously. Do you think things are changing in the right direction?
Yeah, no, I think they are, especially like I would say more like I don't want to say that like industry veterans haven't been doing this work for a long time because they have.
Mm-hmm.
But I think as like more and more new people join publishing, it's just like increasing
Mm-hmm.
that proportion of people who are aware
Mm-hmm.
of like the need to see more BIPOC represented in publishing and in cookbooks. And so I feel really encouraged. Like the editors that I speak with are always very much kind of like mission aligned with
Mm-hmm.
me. And definitely like going to the bookstore and just seeing so many books by authors who are like just like so woven into their cultures that they're writing about. Because you know, growing up like those cookbooks, some of those cookbooks were just written by white authors who
Yeah.
like considered themselves experts on various cuisines. And like
Mm-hmm.
that's it's not the same.
Mm-hmm.
It especially not as a
Yeah.
person of color. It's not the same to read like a Mexican cookbook for me that's by a white author
Mm-hmm.
who doesn't share like a lot of those cultural experiences. And so,
Yeah, no, totally. I remember a moment I was like younger. I was probably in high school. But, with my parents having the restaurant, I was like super already very interested in like Brazilian cuisine and kind of like seeing its presence out there in the world. And I ran into this book written by like white missionaries that like went to Brazil and decided to
oh,
write a
whoa.
culinary cookbook about Brazilian cuisine. And there was this dish in Brazil called frango a molho pardo, which is very like Portuguese influence, but it's like chicken and it's cooked in chicken blood. So it's delicious, but it's for Americans. I feel like would be very weird. Oh my god, chicken blood. And so like on the recipe and the like little description, they were like, yeah, like they said it was weird. Wrote the word weird. I don't know exactly verbatim what they said, but I absolutely know the word weird was in there. And they said basically like, yeah, that's weird. So you can just like omit the blood because like we don't do that. Like we're not gonna do that. That's weird. And it's like that's literally the whole dish, like. And I was so angry, just so upset, and like think moments like that, and then just like other experiences where like I would see a Brazilian recipe and the name would be like spelled wrong, or just just little things that were a big deal to me as a Brazilian person. Like I'm here craving, trying to find things that make me be seen and like things that I can relate to. And every time like I stumble upon it, it's by people who aren't Brazilians, aren't like me, and like are representing it like completely wrong. Really pissed me off so much, which is, like it lit the fire for me to like be able to like write my own books. So I totally agree with you where it's like sometimes, well, not sometimes, the story should be written. If you have to have, I mean, not even just like a Brazilian born, but like have some type of relationship and like respect and really like experience with what you're writing about,
Right?
like
Yeah, I feel like it's so like it feels like they're shopping almost.
yeah,
Like I want to say something like our cultures are not shoppable. Like you
yes,
can't like just like go and take what you want
mm-hmm.
and like what's palatable
Yeah.
and then adjust things and still have it be like real,
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
Yes, absolutely. Exactly. I agree 100%. But like I said, I feel like it's changing for the best, you know? So,
Yeah, and
yeah.
I cannot wait for your cookbook. I mean,
Yay,
oh my gosh, I'm
me
so
neither.
excited.
Me too. I'm so excited. It's going to be a very surreal moment. Very surreal.
For real.
With that said, I think that like for a lot of chefs, people, in the restaurant and culinary industry, the end all be all is to have like a cookbook. A lot of people, like a lot, really dream of that. But a lot of people don't even know where to start. Can
Mm.
you give those people some advice? Like, where do they even start?
Um, oh my goodness.
What comes
I
first?
mean,
The agent, the
yeah, that's a good
proposal, like
question.
what comes first?
I feel like what comes first is like thinking about, well, it depends on your goals for a cookbook. And it's kind of like a smaller, like more personally, on a personal level, like reach. So if you want to go big, then the first thing to do is to think about what about your book and what about you will kind of qualify you to sell to a big publisher. So that's like your social media presence, that's a big one, but also ultimately like your connections in the industry. As you know, Emmy, like you had so many fantastic connections when
Mm-hmm.
we met. And so like that's, people in like food media spaces, that's other culinary creators, and things like that. And then also just like the niche that you feel like your cookbook can fill. So depending on your goals too, because some people do want to write a broader cookbook. Like I know, like Emmy, you're writing kind of like the Brazilian food Bible, I think
Yeah.
is the word that you use, and that works really well, I think, for you because, like you said, like all the Brazilian
Yeah.
cookbooks are written
It's,
by white people.
and also,
So,
did you just name my cookbook? Is that the name?
wait, what did I say? What
The
is it?
Brazilian cookbook? The Brazilian food Bible?
Oh,
Something like
maybe.
that. Just kidding.
I think that would be really cool. But yeah, so like defining where your cookbook will fit into the market. So it could be like broader like that, but most of the time we find success with more specific things like a specific type of food like soups or stews or barbecue, or, kind of bunched together like that. Like there was a big like gluten-free boom that's kind of like over now, but that's an
Mm-hmm.
example, like gluten-free, vegan, like that kind of niche. Because the cookbook publishers are really looking to put things on shelves that aren't there or that haven't been refreshed in a very, very
Mm-hmm.
long time.
Yeah.
So
I've had a
that's a
couple.
long first step, but
No, it's real. Listen, it's taken a long time. That first step is definitely long for sure. Although I've had a couple guests on here and like culinary colleagues that have just like had opportunities kind of like fall in their laps. I had Gino Garcia who wrote the Coco cookbook for Disney, and then Sarah, she was approached by like I forgot the word of like the publisher that it was to like do a Korean barbecue cookbook, and both of those opportunities they took, but they kind of at the end didn't like feel great about it and kind of
Mm,
used it more as like a stepping stone to, have on their resume and things like that. I think Sarah's mentioned that the publisher who like published her book is no longer even in business. I think she only like wrote the recipe. She wasn't involved in anything like the photo shoot and nothing. And she said that a lot of the things also didn't even reflect like Korean culture. Like they did a
mm.
lot of things wrong with like the photo shoot and like chopsticks and like other things like that. Does that still exist out there? Those kind of like, I mean, is it wrong to use like predatory publishers? I don't. Maybe that might be a little too strong, but like, you know, do those exist still out there? Like, should people beware about these things?
Um, yeah, I mean, versions of that exist where like the publisher looks at the market first
Mm-hmm.
and tries to see what's missing and then goes specifically to find someone to write about an idea that
Mm-hmm.
they already have. And that exists. I think like whether it's predatory or not really depends on the contract
Mm-hmm.
and the kind of details that are outlined and the amount of control that you're allowed to have or not have. And so I think I would just be wary of, contracts that don't give you good royalties, that don't outline like things like when do the rights revert, how much say will you have over like photography, like you mentioned with your friend,
Mm-hmm.
or what actually goes into the manuscript,
Mm-hmm.
or what ends up in the ingredients list. So be aware of things that seem to be trying to like take too much of your agency
Mm-hmm.
out
Yeah.
of the making of the book.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think like those kinds of like the ones that um, write to market that hire people to write to market, um, like they can be a fit for some people, I think. They are
Mm-hmm.
really fast paced.
Mm-hmm.
And so it all depends on like what you want to accomplish. I've typically found like it's sort of like you said, I think it can be good as a stepping stone. Like maybe if someone wasn't ready to write like their own cookbook or wasn't ready to find an agent and they like wanted to kind of get the experience under their belt,
Mm-hmm.
maybe get their name on a few things, it could be good.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good experience to have. But for sure, like I I mean, I'm an agent,
Yeah.
so obviously I'm gonna say it's always good to have an agent looking out for you on
Yeah.
especially on that contract side of things. And
Mm-hmm.
especially to say, like for example, your friend that signed with Disney, like to talk you through like, is this really what you want?
Mm-hmm.
Do we feel like we, might have more success and or you would feel better if we came up with our own idea and shopped that around?
Mm-hmm.
Because publishers do scout. So both agents and publishers
Mm-hmm.
for cookbooks in particular, and for other types of like prescriptive nonfiction,
Mm-hmm.
we are out there looking for people. And so if a publisher finds you before an agent does
Mm-hmm.
and gives you an offer, you might not necessarily like have the knowledge to
Mm-hmm.
negotiate or even know if you want it or not. Like it
Mm-hmm.
might, of course, it's going to sound really exciting and good.
Mm-hmm.
And I do believe that like editors have your best interests at heart most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
But the reality is that they don't know what you don't know, and you might also not know what you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where an agent can come in and
Yeah.
kind of help you be a little bit more discerning.
Totally. In those situations where, a
Sorry.
publisher, in the situations where a publisher finds you or, kind of like a Disney or something finds you, like, do people then like hit pause and like try to find an agent? Would that even exist? Or do they not even want to work with an agent like the publishers at that point?
Yeah, so you absolutely can hit pause and try to find an agent. If
Mm-hmm.
a publisher tries to discourage you from finding an agent, then they are not a good publisher.
Mm.
That's very sketchy behavior.
Yeah. You hear that, folks? Nice. So after I after I signed, a publisher, actually a local publisher here, or I think an editor for a publisher here, like reached out, asking me if I was interested in writing the cookbook. So I'm like, oh, already
Yeah.
am. Although they definitely are not like predatory vibes at all, but yeah, it does happen. So
Yeah,
yeah.
for sure. I mean, a lot of times for me, like I'll reach out to people and they either will not get back to me or they'll be like, "Oh, I already have representation," or
Yeah.
"I've already like signed up with the publisher and the deal
Mm-hmm.
hasn't been announced." So like it
Yeah.
is very much like and that's the case for other agents as well. Like you reach out and someone's already got something going
Yeah.
on. So
Do you think it's happening like more now where agents are like reaching, like trying to find more, whereas in the past it was like more like people trying to find agents? Has the market kind of switched, or is it kind of the same?
That's a good question. I mean, because I've only really been representing nonfiction for like
Mm,
probably 2 or 3 years now.
that's yeah,
And I feel like it depends on your name recognition. So that's the case on
yeah,
the fiction side as well, even
mm,
like when you're newer, you're more often going out to find people because
yeah.
you don't have the name recognition
That makes
yet. You're
sense.
not on like the list of like, here's some cookbook agents to
Yeah,
query, right?
that's uh huh.
Um, but once you get some deals under your belt,
Yeah,
you might go to like networking events and stuff, then you
mm,
might start getting queries.
gotcha.
Um, I will say like my mentor, like she still finds clients by scouting. Like she
Okay,
still does a lot of scouting. So
yeah,
that never stops.
nice, interesting. Okay. So for people writing cookbooks, you said the first tip would basically like build up their brand. But then what is the tip on finding the right literary agent for you? Or even if you want to go the literary agent route or try to do it yourself. Is that a possibility too without like an agent? If you're not self-publishing, you said that the publishers usually don't really talk to individuals without an agent.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah.
So, like, it would be really hard to, like, you can't pitch editors by yourself,
Mm.
typically. Sometimes, I don't know if they do this on the nonfiction side, but on the fiction side, like, you might go to like a paid event where there's a few editors there who
Mhm.
are like open to direct from author submissions for X
Mhm.
amount of time. So in those situations, like you can get directly to an editor, but generally you are gonna be wanting to go through an agent for that. And then so in terms of like if you wanted to traditionally publish,
Mhm.
um, and a publisher did not already reach out to you, you almost I would say you for sure want to have an agent,
Mhm.
because otherwise you won't be able to put yourself in the most advantageous position to
Mhm.
get that really good deal
Yeah.
or to get with a publisher that you really want to publish with.
Yeah. And so what should people look for when or what should they do to find an agent? How do you even find one?
Um, Oh my goodness. That's a hard question, I feel like. Start with Google for
Yeah.
sure. And Google, like nonfiction literary agents,
Mhm.
culinary literary agents. There's some like agencies, I think not too many, but a few that specialize in nonfiction. So like
Mhm.
that's a good place to look. If you like have the resources to get a publisher's marketplace membership, I think it's $25 a month. And if you just do it for 1 month, you can go on there and you can see like all the agents that have
Oh,
done recent cookbook deals, and you can use that. Um,
that's a hot tip.
let's
Okay.
see.
And
Yeah,
just
and
like a
there's
cold
resources.
email, like they can just reach out to the agent and like that's normal.
Yeah, so typically the agents will have guidelines posted somewhere on the internet.
Mhm.
So sometimes they have their guidelines posted in their publisher's marketplace profile. Otherwise, you can see their name and you can Google them and you can find them at their agency. And then they'll usually will have like, okay, like if you want to submit a cookbook, you can email me, which is what mine is.
Mhm.
Some people use Query Manager for nonfiction submissions. But yeah, I mean, the whole thing is just like, you don't have to introduce yourself or
Yeah.
anything like that before you send them stuff. You can just be like, hey,
Mhm.
like, here I am. This is who I am. I want to write a cookbook.
Mhm.
Here's all about my cookbook, and here's my proposal.
Yeah.
And yeah, just shoot your shot.
Yes. And going back to, your mission to work with a lot of like BIPOC creators, like what do you have any like specific advice to us where it's like it's obviously like really hard to break that myth of like that all these industries have created that cookie cutter and all that, although things have improved. How do we not kind of give in to that or kind of lose ourselves and really like stay authentic to who we are and like our stories and like the stories that we want to tell? Do you have any like advice that you give your clients or just in general anyone out there?
Um, I think it's a really tough one because it's still not fair,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's not fair that if you write like something that's authentic to yourself, that maybe it has like less of a chance of getting published than like if a white person were to do the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, there are people working, including myself, to write that at the
Yeah.
moment. But like right now, my only advice is that there has to be some level of like, you know, as as like unfair as it is, again, like there has to be some level of peace with like I wrote this thing that's authentic to me,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not going to change it, and it's okay if it doesn't sell, and that
Mm-hmm.
doesn't mean it's less valuable, and that doesn't mean it wouldn't sell if someone took a chance on it.
Mm-hmm.
um so does that make sense? It's like
Yeah.
it you have to be like really have this like strength of
Yeah.
identity and strength of comfort with what
Mm-hmm.
you have accomplished.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's not fair
Yeah.
to have that to ask that of
Yeah.
people. But that's like the advice that I have, I guess. And also, of course, to surround yourself with people who encourage you and support you, who can give you really good advice, who can boost your confidence. And that includes a really good literary agent if you can find one.
Yes.
And of course, like an editor too, if you are able to kind of luck out with a really good literary agent who kind of understands your vision and your identity and stuff. Ideally, if it's a concern of yours, they'll be talking to you about like who's an editor that will be a really good advocate for you,
Hmm.
or helping you navigate like those questions with an editor you're not sure about.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. The work that you're doing is just amazing. I'm so lucky and thankful that you are my agent. You are definitely the best, the
Aw,
best of the
that's
best
really
out
kind. Well,
there.
I'm really lucky to be working with you. I'm just like, especially with, our everything that's been going on recently with what we've
Yes.
been trying to do for your cookbook and stuff. I
Yes.
mean, it's just really fun getting to talk to you like
Yeah.
more frequently and
Totally.
see things moving forward.
Yeah, I love it. I feel like I said in the beginning, like you're really like an advocate. I feel like, the benefits of having a literary agent, you're really like having somebody who has your back, is advocating for you, like understands your mission and really is that like middleman to kind of like give and take fairly to where, I, the creator, feels still good about the story that I'm putting out there and the publisher can feel like it will sell to middle America. So
For sure, for
where we're
sure.
both happy. With that said, what's Stephanie for, like the future? Do you have like any goals? Is this kind of like the end all be all like literary agent? Like what do you dream of?
Oh man, so many things. I definitely like I want to do more cookbooks for
Mm,
sure. I'm still out there scouting,
yeah.
emailing people who often have agents already,
Yeah.
which is kind of a drag, but I'm still at it. Just because I mean, I think I feel really passionately just about like bringing food heritage like back to especially like um second and third generation immigrants
Mm,
because that's kind of my experience too. And like, yeah, just bringing more diverse food and more people
yeah.
to the platforms that these publishers can offer.
Yeah.
Um, so that's kind of number one on my brain right now. And then,
Yeah.
of course, on the fiction side, still looking for novels. Kind of the same deal there. I
Yeah.
really want BIPOC stories at all ages. Yeah.
Yay. Thanks, Stephanie. The work that you're doing is so important. Thank you so much for all that you do. And if
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
let the
I mean, it makes me all flustered when people say that, but
no, it is.
but
It's a really, yeah, it's really big work. There's like ripple effects, like the work that you do really like, I mean, it affects me, it affects like so many people. So, sometimes we don't realize that. It's just, we got our head down and we're just working, working, working. But, it's like a whole community. Like it really does affect everyone in such a positive way.
so true. I hope so.
Yeah, let the people know where they can find you on social media or like website. If they got the hottest new book proposal to send over to you, where can they find you?
Yeah, so you can go to my agency website, it's just ladderbird.com, and you can find me under the agents tab. I have all my submission guidelines there. And then I'm also on Instagram. I think I can never remember if there's a dot in there, but I'm either at Agent Stephanie or Agent.Stephanie. And then same thing on Blue Sky. I'm no longer really on Twitter. I tried to escape it a little bit. So yeah, Instagram,
Awesome.
Blue Sky, that's where to find me.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Stephanie. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in to Dishin Up Diaspora. We'll catch you again next week.